I want to share this specifically with the gentlemen. Something that I've realized in my personal life, and I hope that my wisdom as a woman and a coach who works primarily with men will help you in your dating and relationship journey. So please, please listen up. Many men, in my opinion, are drawn to beauty, intimacy, and excitement, and those things absolutely matter, but they do not sustain a relationship. If you had met me, let's say 15 years ago, I would not have been the woman I am today. I may have had the looks and created excitement in a connection, but I wasn't bringing into my relationships something that is absolutely crucial for a man. I was not bringing peace. I brought emotional reactivity, unresolved pain, anger, lots of anger, and control issues. And looking back now, I can clearly see how those patterns contributed to my two divorces. Now, before I continue, though, I do want to be clear. I'm not saying that my former partners were perfect. They weren't. There are always two people in a relationship. But today, I want to talk about my responsibility. Because one of the biggest lessons I learned is that inability to take accountability sooner or later will lead to destruction. And the work I had done on myself and guidance I've been providing to men in my coaching practice made me realize something critical about men. Even though men are drawn to beauty and sense of intimacy, what most healthy guys are actually looking for is peace. The problem is that many men don't know what they are craving, not because they're not intelligent, but because they are unsure what healthy relationship is supposed to feel like. Maybe you've become accustomed to confusion, emotional ups and downs, and constantly trying to figure out where you stand. And that has been mistaken for normalcy. So, yeah, men may have hard time identifying peace. They may not know how to ask for it, and they don't know how to determine whether a woman is capable of bringing it into a relationship. So in this video, I'm going to show you three things. Why peace is one of the most important qualities a man should look for in a relationship. How to determine whether a woman is actually capable and willing to bring peace into a relationship. And the biggest mistake I see men making in modern dating that keeps them stuck in relationships that drain them instead of fulfilling them. You do not need another emotional roller coaster. You need clarity. And it starts with understanding what you are looking for. And I know this because I learned it the hard way. And while it wasn't very easy for me to take a very honest look at myself and my behavior and to own up to my toxic contribution in my past relationships, it was precisely what is allowing me now to share this wisdom with you in hopes it can help you. In the past, I avoided difficult conversations. I would sweep things under the rug. I expected my partners to read my mind instead of communicating clearly. I expected them to guess what I needed. And then when my disappointment, resentment, or frustration built up to a point where I could no longer contain it, I would lash out. That was the emotional roller coaster I created. Not because conflict was happening, but because conflict was being avoided until it exploded. And that's not peaceful and sustainable dynamic. Peace requires honesty. Peace requires communication and emotional responsibility. Now, if peace is what you're looking for, the question now becomes, how do you know whether a woman is actually capable of creating it? Well, you gotta ask certain questions. Because the attraction is not really enough data. Common interests are not enough data. A beautiful woman can still create a very difficult dynamic. A strong connection can still become an unhealthy relationship. So your job as a man is not to be impressed and put a woman on a pedestal. Your job is to discern quickly. One of the mistakes I see men making is that they spend so much time trying to get the woman to like them that they never stop to ask whether they actually like what they are experiencing themselves. Whether she's attractive is obvious right away. Whether she's capable of a healthy dynamic in a relationship is not. And those are two very different things. So one question I would encourage you guys to ask a woman is this one. Tell me about a time you were wrong in a relationship. What did you learn from it? Pay attention to the answer. Can she take accountability? Can she acknowledge mistakes? Can she reflect on her own behavior? Or is the entire story about how everybody else did her wrong? One of the strongest indicators of emotional maturity is the ability to say, I was wrong. Another question you can ask a woman is this one. How do you typically handle conflict when you are upset? You're not asking this question, by the way, because you are expecting some kind of perfection. Nobody's perfect. I certainly wasn't, and you're not perfect either. But does she have self-awareness? Can she identify her own patterns? Can she talk about how she regulates herself emotionally? Or does she justify every reaction with, well, it's just the way I am, or, well, we women are very emotional. Yes, we women are emotional, but we still carry full responsibility for our emotions. Again, you're not looking for perfection. You're looking for someone willing to learn and grow while taking responsibility for the emotions and the behaviors. Now, another question you should absolutely ask is, what do you think makes a relationship successful? And listen carefully. Does she talk only about what she wants from a man and out of relationship, maybe presenting you with a list of qualities and wishes? Or does she talk about what she contributes, what she brings to the table? Because healthy relationships are not built by two people asking, what can I get? They're built by two people asking, what can I contribute? We all learn on the job, in a sense, when it comes to relationships, but you definitely want to be paying attention to whether she's open to learning. You're looking for patterns and self-awareness. You're looking for accountability and willingness. By the way, you need to be able to have all of this yourself. Awareness, knowing your patterns, accountability, and willingness. Peace is not something a woman either has or does not have. Peace is something she values enough to cultivate. And that willingness makes all the difference. And by the way, I'm going to include the questions down in the description as well, if you want to save them and use them later. Let me tell you what other mistake I see men making quite often. Many guys don't have a discernment problem, they have action problem. They may see the signs, they may have concerns, they notice the emotional volatility, they may notice the sense of hostility, they notice the difficult conversation somehow becomes their fault, but they stay anyway. Why? Because they're attracted, they're hopeful, they may have convinced themselves things will get better. Or maybe because they're afraid they will not find someone else. That fear is real and very understandable. Modern dating can be confusing and frustrating, but fear is a terrible foundation for choosing a partner. If you have a tendency to over-accommodate a woman, believing you're being loving, understanding, and patient toward her, you might be making a very common mistake. There is a difference between supporting someone and rescuing someone. You're not responsible for fixing a woman, healing her wounds, or teaching her accountability. That is her responsibility. Just as your emotional growth is your responsibility. And this is the truth I want you to hear from me. If a woman consistently brings chaos into the relationship, you don't feel at ease, you don't feel at peace, your job is not to convince her to change. Your job is to decide whether that relationship is aligned with the life you want to create. Because what you tolerate today becomes your reality tomorrow. That's why standards matter, not because you're trying to control another person, because standards protect your peace. If you want a peaceful relationship, if you want a fulfilling relationship, you must be willing to walk away from relationships and connections that potentially destroy that peace. No amount of beauty will compensate for chronic disrespect. No amount of chemistry will compensate for emotional instability. And at some point, you have to decide what matters more: temporary excitement or a long-term peace. This brings me to the final point. As a man, it is your responsibility to communicate what you want. Many guys spend months trying to figure out what a woman wants, how to make her happy. Very few spend time clearly communicating what they want. What kind of relationship do you want to build? What are your standards? What are your values? What are your non-negotiables? Can you clearly communicate and articulate them to her early on? Because if you cannot communicate what you want, how can another person know whether they are aligned with you? One of the most attractive qualities in a man to a healthy woman is certainty. Not control, not dominance, certainty. For example, if peace is important to you, and it certainly should be, say so. If respectful, calm communication is important to you, say so. Not 6 months into a relationship, not after resentment has already built up to the point that big fights are breaking out, but from the very beginning. The right woman will appreciate your clarity. The wrong woman will resist it. Either way, you receive valuable information. So if you take anything away from this video, let it be this. Stop focusing only on whether a woman is attractive. Stop asking only whether there is chemistry, and ask yourself a better question. Does this woman bring peace into my life? Does she take responsibility for herself? Is she willing to work with me to create a healthy relationship together? Because the looks, the beauty, the chemistry, it will fade away. Life will become difficult at times. Challenges will come, it's inevitable. And when they do, peace becomes priceless. That's the quality that sustains a relationship. That's the quality that creates emotional safety. And that's the quality far too many men overlook until it is too late. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does peace in relationship mean to you, really? Have you experienced relationship in the past that brought peace or otherwise? Leave me a comment below, please, and let me know. And thank you for sticking with me till the end of the video. Have a great rest of the week.